Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
What's going on, everyone? And if you're a Mets fan, buckle up because what I'm about to tell you is going to make your blood boil. We need to talk about the Edwin Diaz situation and specifically how David Stearns and this front office completely fumbled one of the most important decisions of the entire offseason. Before we dive in, smash that like button right now if you're tired of watching this organization make the same mistakes over and over again. And make sure you stay until the end because I'm going to reveal exactly what went wrong behind the scenes and why it proves that David Stearns has no idea how to manage relationships with star players. Edwin Diaz is now a Los Angeles Dodger. He signed a 3-year, $51 million contract to join the defending World Series champions. And here's the part that should make every Mets fan furious. The Mets could have easily matched that deal. They could have beaten it. Steve Cohen has the money. The Mets needed a closer. Diaz wanted to stay in New York initially. Everything was lined up for this to work, but it didn't happen. And the reason it didn't happen has nothing to do with money and everything to do with the fact that David Stearns completely destroyed the relationship with Edwin Diaz through sheer incompetence and lack of communication. Let me take you through exactly what happened, because when you understand the timeline and the sequence of events, you'll realize just how badly this was mishandled. Edwin Diaz had been the Mets' closer. He came back from a devastating knee injury. He worked his way back into form. He was part of that magical playoff run in 2024. He had invested years of his career with this organization. And despite some ups and downs, he was still one of the elite closers in baseball when healthy. The relationship between Diaz and the Mets should have been solid. There should have been mutual respect and understanding. Then David Stearns decided to trade for Devin Williams. Now, on the surface, getting another elite reliever makes sense. You can never have too much bullpen depth. But here's where Stearns made his first massive mistake. He didn't communicate with Edwin Diaz before making that trade. He didn't pick up the phone and say, hey, we're bringing in another closer. Here's how we see this working. Here's what your role is going to be. Nothing. Diaz found out about the Devin Williams trade the same way everyone else did, through social media and news reports. Think about how disrespectful that is. This is a player who had been your closer, who had been through injuries and rehab with your organization, who had established himself as a key part of your team, and you make a move that directly impacts his role and his future without even giving him a heads up. That's not how you treat people. That's not how you manage relationships. That's how you create resentment and distrust. And the worst part is that this was completely avoidable. All Stearns had to do was make one phone call, one conversation where he explains the thinking behind the Williams trade, where he reassures Diaz about his value to the team, where he opens a dialogue about what the future looks like. But he didn't do it. And according to multiple reports, Diaz felt blindsided. He felt disrespected. He felt like the organization that he had given everything to was now treating him like an afterthought. Now, fast forward a few weeks, the Mets are trying to re-sign Diaz. They're in negotiations with his agent, and suddenly they're realizing that the relationship has been damaged. Diaz isn't as eager to come back as they thought he would be. He's taking meetings with other teams. He's exploring his options. And the Mets are scrambling, trying to figure out how to repair what they broke. But here's where it gets even worse. The Dodgers come in with their offer, 3 years, $51 million. It's a good deal, but it's not some overwhelming, impossible-to-match contract. It's completely reasonable for a pitcher of Diaz's caliber. The Mets absolutely could have matched it. They absolutely could have beaten it if they wanted to. But by the time they tried to circle back, by the time they attempted to make a competitive offer, Diaz was already done with them. He had already decided that he didn't want to stay with an organization that treated him that way. And you know how we know that's true? Because of what Diaz said when he signed with the Dodgers. He specifically mentioned that the Dodgers are a winning organization. He talked about their culture. He talked about how they communicate with their players and make them feel valued. Those aren't random comments. Those are very deliberate shots at the Mets. When a player leaves and immediately starts talking about how his new team does things better, that tells you everything you need to know about what he experienced with his old team. This is a pattern with David Stearns, and it's becoming clearer with every decision he makes. He doesn't value the human element of baseball. He doesn't understand that these are relationships that need to be managed and maintained. He treats players like assets on a spreadsheet instead of people who have emotions and feelings and pride. And when you operate that way, when you make decisions without considering how they're going to impact the actual human beings involved, you create exactly these kinds of situations. The Pete Alonso disaster was the same thing. No communication, no offer, no attempt to make the player feel valued. Just cold, analytical decision-making that completely ignores the relationship side of things. Brandon Nimmo getting traded without any real warning or explanation. The pattern is undeniable. Stearns operates in this vacuum where he makes what he thinks are smart baseball decisions without ever considering whether he's burning bridges with the players who are actually on the field. And here's what makes the Diaz situation even more infuriating. The Mets needed a closer. They still need a closer. Devin Williams is great, but he's not Edwin Diaz. And even if you want to argue that Williams is just as good or better, the point is that the Mets could have had both. They could have had the deepest, most dominant bullpen in baseball. They could have had two elite closers who could be deployed in high-leverage situations throughout the playoffs. But instead, they have one and they lost the other one because David Stearns couldn't be bothered to pick up a phone. Now the Mets are in a position where they're going into next season with question marks in the bullpen. They're hoping that Williams stays healthy. They're hoping they can cobble together enough depth to get through a season. They're in a weaker position than they should be, all because their president of baseball operations doesn't understand basic human communication. And you want to know the really scary part? Diaz was willing to stay. Multiple people close to the situation have confirmed that if the Mets had handled this properly, if they had communicated with him from the beginning, if they had made him feel valued and respected, he probably would have re-signed for a similar deal to what the Dodgers gave him. He liked New York. He liked his teammates. He had built a life there. But Stearns destroyed all of that goodwill through negligence and poor management. This is what happens when you hire someone from a small market organization to run a big market team. In Milwaukee, Stearns could afford to be cold and analytical because the players didn't have better options. If you're playing for the Brewers and you're unhappy, where are you going to go? You're not a free agent. You don't have leverage. You deal with it. But in New York, with the Mets, players have options. Free agents have choices. And if you treat them poorly, if you make them feel disrespected or undervalued, they're going to leave. They're going to sign with teams that actually know how to build relationships. The Dodgers understand this. The Yankees understand this. The successful organizations in baseball understand that, yes, analytics matter. Yes, you need to make smart financial decisions, but you also need to treat your players like human beings. You need to communicate. You need to build trust. You need to make people feel like they're part of something bigger than just a transaction. And the Mets, under David Stearns, are failing miserably at that. Edwin Diaz is going to thrive with the Dodgers. He's going to be part of another championship run. He's going to be surrounded by a front office that knows how to manage relationships and a coaching staff that knows how to maximize talent. And every time he closes out a game for them, every time he's celebrating in October while the Mets are watching from home, you're going to remember that it didn't have to be this way. The Mets had Edwin Diaz. They could have kept him. The money wasn't an issue. The fit wasn't an issue. The only issue was David Stearns and his complete inability to manage basic human relationships. And if that doesn't concern you about the future of this organization, if that doesn't make you question whether Stearns is the right person for this job, then I don't know what will. So here's what I want from you in the comments. Tell me if you think I'm overreacting. Tell me if you think losing Diaz is a big deal or if you're fine with just having Devin Williams. Tell me if you have any faith left in David Stearns after watching him mishandle yet another crucial decision. Because from where I'm sitting, this is a front office that has no idea what it's doing when it comes to managing the human side of baseball. And until that changes, until Stearns learns that you can't just treat everyone like numbers on a spreadsheet, this team is going to keep losing players who should want to be here. Hit that subscribe button for more honest Mets content. Drop your comments below, and I'll see you in the next video where we continue breaking down this absolute disaster of an offseason.